let's talk about the elephant in the room, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I try my best not to talk about Donald Trump because that's exactly what he wants. In fact, some estimates suggest that he got over $2 billion worth of free media during the primaries, which subsequently helped his campaign get launched into the stratosphere. But it's difficult not to talk about Donald Trump. I want to share a tweet that he sent out yesterday, essentially blaming, and now you can see it there on your screen. Of course, there is a large-scale voter fraud happening on and before Election Day. Why do Republicans leaders deny what is going on? So naive. So this goes into the Donald Trump narrative. I've never seen someone with so much money, so much quote-unquote success, be such a victim and cry about the inevitable loss that he's going to suffer. So he's already baking it into the system that the election is rigged, that there's going to be voter fraud. And I think it's important to identify what he's talking about specifically. He's not talking about election fraud, Pat. He's not talking about voter suppression, because historically Republicans have overwhelmingly benefited from voter suppression. They are the ones doing everything they can to make sure that people, particularly people of color, minorities, are inhibited from or stopped from voting by voter ID laws and anything they can think of to suppress the vote. So when he says when he says voter fraud, he's specifically talking about this idea that people are, quote unquote, voting from the grave. People died, he said on a radio broadcast or on a television broadcast, that people who died 10 years ago are now voting. And he's trying to plant this seed as a justification of why he's going to lose, because his internal polling is probably telling him the same thing that every other poll is telling him. He's going to get his butt handed to him in November. And so he's already trying to make the case that it was rigged. There's a couple of things that happens here. One, this is a dangerous game to be playing. We take for granted the peaceful transfer of power in the United States. But the only real guarantee to a peaceful transfer of power is the concession speech by the person who loses. The person who loses is expected to usher his followers, his or her followers, to the broader American body politic and say, okay, we lost and we're going to support the winner. Without that, there really is no guarantee that there's going to be a peaceful transfer of power. And Donald Trump blaming everyone for his condition, or the fact that he is going to lose and lose very bigly, really sets up a dangerous precedent. I don't know. What do you think? It looks like you had something's on your mind, Pat. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, he just has to save face, because the whole past year or two, he's been playing himself up as this big winner, right? And concession speeches, a peaceful transition of power, is one of the most important things that we have in our democracy. If you look at the 2000 election, it was very disputed. Al Gore ended up losing to George W. Bush, not because of the vote counts, but just because the Supreme Court handed it to him. And even after all that, even though Al Gore didn't accept, even though he didn't agree with the decision that the Supreme Court made, he still decided to accept it. We don't think that Trump is going to be doing the same thing here. He's going to go down kicking and screaming. Right,
which his running mate Mike Pence had to go on the Sunday political shows and essentially make the case that, okay, no, we will respect the winner. But while he's saying that, the actual nominee, Donald Trump, is suggesting that if he loses, it's only because the election is rigged. And I'm glad you brought up 2000. I was there, man. I remember it very clearly. We were upset. And had Al Gore not conceded the second time, there could have been in the most extreme case, a violent revolution against the institution, particularly the Supreme Court. And so by him doing that, he guaranteed the continuation of a peaceful transfer of power, which I think we take for granted because it does not have to happen. And Donald Trump seems to be the very type of person that would undermine that peaceful transfer of power. So we want to keep our eyes on someone like Donald Trump. I think there's a lot more going on there. I think it may be some political jujitsu. He's trying to depress the vote. He's trying to even set himself up after the fact. Even there's another image, I think, there from him blaming the media. Media bias alert that he tweeted out. 96% of the presidential campaign donations from journalists have all gone to Hillary Clinton. This gives the impression that the journalists are in the tank for Hillary Clinton. I agree to a certain extent, but these are free moral human beings, like moral agents, not free moral human beings, but free moral agents. They can decide who they want to give donations to or not. But I think this is all part of a strategy trying to make sure that he's properly set up for this media empire that people are suggesting that he wants to kick off after he gets his butt kicked in November.